Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this webinar about how to prepare your Higg BRM verification. I'm really pleased to have all of you here. We have a very large audience here today, so I'm looking forward to spending the next hour together with you. My name is Karin Ekberg, and I'm the founder and CEO of Leadership and Sustainability. I have worked during many years in the sustainability area and have also been working at Adidas previously, where I was responsible for environment globally. And since 6.5 years now, I am managing leadership and sustainability. And we are BRM verifiers since last year, and we conducted quite a lot of verifications last year. Now, just to show you how the control panel functions, you are all muted today in order to have the best audio quality, but you are welcome to send us your questions throughout this webinar. We will also have time towards the end to take questions, but you can send questions at any time. So you would have to open up the question function. You click the drop-down arrow to open the questions, and then you insert your question and you send it off here. So I hope that that will work for everyone. And also for your information, you will receive, in a few days after this webinar, you will receive a link to the recording of the webinar and also to download the presentation. All right, so let's get going. The agenda today is I will give a very brief introduction to Higg BRM. I am aware that most of you probably are already into completing your BRM self-assessment. And then we will be talking about the verification process overview. It's really the focus we have in this webinar today. We will not talk a lot about many detailed questions in the Higg BRM. We will really talk about the process for the Higg BRM verification. There is some general information I would like to give. We will also speak about the 2 different levels of verification that are available, and the process flow, some approximate timelines, although for those of you who would like to work with us as with the BRM verification, you can actually decide in a quite flexible manner how you would like to conduct your verification, and then how we are going to plan it. We have a few small examples of questions and also 1 report example, so that it can give you an idea of what the closing meeting report would look like. So basically the result that you would get from us after the verification. We will also talk about the external communication about the BRM verification, because as soon as you have verified the BRM, you are allowed to communicate externally about that within some guardrails, of course, and they have been defined by SAC. And then added value, we will also present our team to you. And of course, we will have time for questions and discussion as well. So let me go to the introduction to Higg BRM. Probably all of you know the Higg Index is a huge suite of tools with several different elements, the facility tools, the brand and retail tool, which of course is the focus of today's webinar. And then we also have the Higg product tools. And the idea with all those tools is, of course, that we would be able to measure everything that is relevant within a brand and for its supply chain and products as well. And I see we already have a question here. Someone saying hi. Okay, hi. Good. And then the Higg BRM is designed to evaluate the maturity of a company's social and environmental management system. So it really takes the temperature of everything you do as a brand at a strategic level, but also at a quite tactical level. And then the idea with all the tools within the Higg Index suite is to drive performance improvement. That has always been the mantra of SAC, to help drive performance improvement. And of course, we want also to align with standards, government initiatives, and other Higg Index tools, of course. And the tool should be a scalable tool that can be adopted by the industry. Furthermore, it is developed by the industry with many different stakeholder categories that have been engaged in developing the tool. It provides a holistic picture of the value chain sustainability. So not only supply chain or not only brand, but really the entire value chain. And you can use Higg BRM to report progress on industry initiatives like, for example, the science-based targets, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the G7 Fashion Pact, for example. And then we are speaking about 11 different environmental impacts. In the Higg BRM, you can see them listed here. It's the usual suspects, I would say. And also on the social side, we have a few more, but also the ones that we would usually work with in our sustainability programs. And I see we have one question. Okay. Yes, I'm not sure I understand that question. That was not clear. If you could just, Rahul, if you could please just explain your question. Thank you again. Good. So the process overview. This is a high-level overview of the verification process. First of all, we would ask you for some information in order to be able to make a proposal to you. So we have a small questionnaire. I will show you a screenshot a bit later, where we ask you for some information about your company or about your brand. And then we would make a proposal to you, and we would agree on a contract together. And then you would engage us as a verifying body and assign us on the higg.org. So once you are in your self-assessment, once you have finalized your self-assessment, posted it, you can also select the verifying body. And then we would have a look at your self-assessment, and if needed, we would revise or update scope. This happens very, very seldom, and normally it's very clear from the beginning based on the first information you give about the time that we would need for the verification. And I will speak a bit more about how we calculate that a bit later. And then we would develop a verification plan and interview schedule together. And you see also down here at the bottom, more or less how much time we need between the different steps. Of course, this is adjustable. Sometimes some steps are faster, sometimes some steps take a bit more time. And then we would go into the actual verification. And you can see here, this would take 2 to 6 weeks, depending on how intensive you would like to work as well. And of course, depending on how your schedules are and how the people who are interviewed, who are involved in the interview process, how much time they have and when they have time. And then we would send back your module to you, and you would review it. And if there is anything that needs to be changed, we would then do the necessary changes after agreeing on them. And in the end, you can finalize and post your verified report. And then you can also take the next step and communicate about your results. All right. And then the level of verification. There are 2 different levels, the reasonable and the limited level. And the reasonable level is the higher, let's say, more advanced level, and the limited level is the lower level. For you, those of you who are members of SAC, you can choose the level you would like to do. SAC doesn't require you to do any of these levels. They accept any type, any level. But in the reasonable verification, we would seek more extensive evidence in all relevant areas than what we would do in the limited verification. We would also look for comparative evidence. So we would like to double check information you give to us. We would do our own research as well on the internet, for example. And then in the end, we should obtain sufficient evidence that we can say that the risk of our accuracy determination being an error is very low. So basically said, we need to minimize the risk that we make an error in our verification. For the limited verification, we have some more freedom of judgment, and we can put more emphasis on a few inquiries, discussions, and also depending on how many people we would like to interview, if we go deeper, we can also take a judgment call there. So in the end, the limited verification is less comprehensive and also takes less time. And some in general information for you, the verifications are conducted offsite. Generally, there is no requirement whatsoever to do any work on site at the moment. And there is, of course, an option. We can do the entire verification on site together with you. We can do the closing meeting together on site, for example, but there is no requirement. We can do the entire verification also offsite. So then, of course, via webinar. And I can also say that we always work online in that sense that we will be showing our screen all the time, similarly to how I share my screen now with the slides. We would be going on online with the Higg portal and look at each and every question together and then mark them up. As a verifier, we need to mark them up, your responses, either as accurate or inaccurate. And then we can also add comments, especially if something has been changed, the response has been changed, then we also always need to write an explanation. So for those of you who know how the verification goes for Higg FEM, for the Facility Environmental module, or for the FSLM, the Social and Labor module, then it's exactly, the platform works in exactly the same manner. And we are, yes, face-to-face is optional, as I mentioned. And then there is also the calendar year. So for the BRM 2020, so last year's BRM, there you were supposed to use only the calendar year from January to December. But from now onwards, with the BRM 2021, it is allowed to use also the fiscal year. So you may have a broken fiscal year, then you can use that as well. And then there is guidance given from SAC on how to calculate the time we need for the actual verification. And you can see the table here. It's really ranked according to the revenue range of your company. And then there is a lower estimate and an upper estimate, and it is given in hours, but we have also calculated the number of days. So you can see here, for a smaller company, we would speak about 4 to 6.5 days. For a bit of a mid-sized company with $100 million to $1 billion revenue, we would speak about 6.5 to 12.5 days, and so on. And now I have some resources for you. There is a lot of information on the How to Higg that you can go and read and learn more about the actual questions, the details about the questions, etc. And here also we have the How to Higg itself, the How to Higg as a PDF you can download, or also go online and see all the guidance online. The How to Higg is a really rich guidance for you. It explains, it gives some background about the questions. It explains how to respond yes, or perhaps partial yes or no. And it also explains how to verify and the documentation required. So there is a lot of information available there. And when you do the assessment online, it may not always be so straightforward when you should respond yes or partial yes or no. So in some cases, for example, you need to have something covered by more than 75% in order to respond yes, 25 to 75% in order to respond partial yes, etc. So please always, when you complete your self-assessment, please go and read the guidance at the same time, so that you don't have any surprises during the verification. And there also in the How to Higg, it is also mentioned which documentation that is needed. BRM asks for a lot of documentation. You don't need to upload everything to the portal, and especially you should not upload any confidential information. But in any case, during the verification, we would like to see all documentation. So that is important to know. And then there is also one document about the verification guidance. And now about the planning of the verification. So first of all, as a verification team, we are independent. We also have a code of conduct. Usually we also sign an NDA with our clients, so that it's again secured for the brands that everything that we learn about your company that it is confidential. But in any case, there is from SAC a verified code of professional conduct that we are bound to. We also have our own code of conduct, where of course the confidentiality is also emphasized. And then the documentation. The more time you spend during your self-assessment to take care of your documentation and file all your documentation, the easier it will be for you during the verification. And especially if perhaps you're doing the self-assessment now, the deadline is of course end of June, then and you are going to do the verification only in October. There are several months in between where you might forget, etc. So please organize your documents already from the beginning. And I cannot emphasize it enough how important the documentation is, that it is accurate and thorough and well structured. So we always suggest that you sort all your documents in folders by section. So that, for example, the company profile has one folder, the management system environment section has one folder, etc. And we also advise you to number the documents according to the question number. So you have the folder management system environment, and there you just sort the documents with the MSE1, MSE2. So MSE1 is perhaps MSE1 policy, MSE2 risk assessment, etc. And then you still know what the document includes, but you have a numbering system. And then all documents are also listed chronologically or alphabetically. And that is, it's much easier for you and also for the verifier. Of course, there may be some documents, perhaps your sustainability report, you may not want to upload that document 20 times. You don't need to do that either. And you can then point to the document in an Excel table. I will show you that very soon. So please make sure that you keep the overview and that you stay organized, and that will help you a lot during the verification. For all our clients, we make available a document request list. It looks like this. Here we have all the questions. We have the required documents according to How to Higg. We haven't invented anything here. We have just taken it out of the How to Higg. And then we also have the response possibilities, the file name. So if you have, for example, the sustainability report, you can add it here into this column here, sustainability report, page 23, or whatever. We would, in any case, add your name. And then here, if we have some comments, we would add them here. And also as a follow-up tool for all of us, because the portal itself is not structured so that it's easy to do a follow-up. If, for example, one document is missing, or you would like to add something, or you need to check something with a colleague, then we usually mark it up in this Excel table. And then the actual interview process, and this is important, especially when you engage with your internal teams and explain to them how the process will be. So in the verification, we will go through all the questions together with you in an interview setting. So we would set up an interview, perhaps half an hour, to discuss the company profile. Then we would set up for management system environment, correspondingly also an interview, and that may take, perhaps it's a 1 hour, perhaps a 2 hour, sometimes we need even 3 hours. And there you would invite the people who actually also completed the self-assessment and or who can respond to the specific questions. And in those interviews, I mean, the purpose is, of course, to validate the statements in your BRM self-assessment. And we would like to learn about your process. So for every question, we would ask you to explain why you have responded in a certain manner, how your process works, which documentation you would like to show us. And then we walk online, we walk through these documents. So we would, I as a verifier, I would open up that document, we would walk through it together, we would go back to the portal, to the Higg portal, and mark up accurate or inaccurate, any comments we want to do. And it is really something we do together that's important, and we can also discuss any questions or uncertainties. So during the actual verification, you can ask us any questions. We cannot support you with completing the BRM self-assessment ahead of the verification, because of course then we would land in a conflict of interest. But during the verification, we can support you in guiding you in order to make sure that the responses are actually correct. And so please make sure that your teams, that they feel comfortable and feel comfortable also to ask their questions and object if they have something, if there is some information we missed, we don't understand or so. So then you should really make sure that you ask those questions to us or inform us. And then we will, of course, also explain any evaluation results where we have selected an inaccurate. Perhaps it was something with the percentage ranges that I mentioned before that is different, where you have responded yes, but actually you had a coverage of 50%, which would be a partial yes, for example. So we will always make sure that it is clear to you why a response is changed to inaccurate. And we always, anyway, as verifiers, we always have to write a comment why it is inaccurate. We will also give you feedback about improvement potential. And then what I think is really important, this is a dialogue. It's not an audit with black or white results. So it's really an engagement between us. Let me see, I think we have a question here. No, there was no question, just a comment. Good. And then the actual timetable in terms of the specific steps, once we have decided that we would work together, we would have a planning meeting, or we might do that via email, it depends a bit. And then we organize a formal kickoff meeting. And in this kickoff meeting, most brands actually invite all their teams who have been involved in the BRM self-assessment and will be involved during the interview process and the verification process. So it's a formal, it's quite short, normally 30 minutes. We go through the scope that we are going to work, the process of the interviews, the timelines we have, and some administrative things that we need to discuss. And then we do the interviews. So this is the actual verification then, and then we go into the closing meeting. So we usually need a few days to prepare the report for the closing meeting, but as soon as we have completed the interviews, we will do the closing meeting, where we present the overall results. We have a detailed list of the questions, where you can still improve, and then also some general improvement recommendations. And here I would like to give you also a few examples of what it may look like, and there are some highlights and questions that are important to understand correctly. So, for example, the management system environment, question 2, MSE2, does your company have an environmental risk assessment? And here you see the documents that How to Higg require us to have a look at. So first, a high-level description of the company's environmental risk assessment process. This is something we see that is quite often actually missing. So this is important that you actually have some description. Is it a 1 page or half a page, just describing your risk assessment process? And then the documented output of the environmental risk assessment, and it should have been carried out in the last 2 years. A list of stakeholders that were consulted, because there are also follow-up questions that ask about which stakeholders that were included. And then explanation of how the risk assessment process has led you to understand your main risks, so your salient risks. And I also need to be give a caution here. If you cannot respond with yes here to this question, then you cannot respond yes to the next question about the risks, because question number 3, there you should indicate all risks you have identified. And we actually had this situation last year where SAC told us that question 3 needs to be a no if you haven't done the environmental risk assessment. So it's not enough to say, okay, I skipped the assessment and I already know that water and energy are the most important for me, so I will just respond to that. That is not enough. You actually need the question number to respond yes to the question number 2 first. The next example is from brand environment and question number 5. And here there were a lot of discussions during the verifications last year. The question is, does your company track the percentage of its materials that have environmentally preferred attributes or certifications? And if you answered yes, you should then select the applicable environmental attributes for your materials. And in a previous question, you have already marked up which materials you have that have environmental attributes, so are preferred from an environmental perspective. And now you can go and complete this table. I have only made a screenshot of a small portion of the table. There are a few additional questions here. But now what is really important here is that last year you had to track your materials as a percentage of your entire materials portfolio. But you can see, and this is now a quote from the How to Higg for the BRM 2021. Companies may track sustainable materials as a percentage of that material's conventional counterpart or as a percentage of that entire materials portfolio. So for example, if you are using, let's say, cotton and polyester, and you have 50%, and the more environmentally friendly is respectively also 50%. So in the first selection, where you can say a percentage of that material's conventional counterpart, you would say that you have 50% more sustainable cotton. But as a percentage of the entire materials portfolio, since cotton is only half of your total volume of materials, and then 50% of that means that you have 25% more sustainable cotton compared to your entire materials portfolio. And so this year you are allowed to choose one of the 2 alternatives to report. So it's up to you to decide. But of course, then you need to be stringent in responding to the question, so that you really do that then for all materials that you are using. And then again, this is the same question. In order to answer yes, your company has tracked more than 75% of your entire materials portfolio for environmental attributes or certifications. To answer partial yes, you have 25 to 75%. And when answering no, this is because you have less than 25%. Then we have one more example. This is the last example of the case studies. This is operations and logistics and the social questions. And generally, the social questions in the operations and logistics sections are a bit difficult because most brands, not all, but most brands have actually outsourced transportation or logistics to external providers. And so in this case, with question number 14, are all transportation operations in compliance with local labor laws? And you should also say which of the following practices that are included. And how to verify here, this is not so easy. How do you ensure that your external partners are in compliance with local labor laws if you don't have an audit program there? And so it's not so easy to do this. And here we have the information from How to Higg. Internal, external materials that you can explain the company's monitoring program or system to ensure transportation operations and or contracted employment labor agencies are meeting local labor laws. So you need to have some monitoring system in place in order to do this. It's quite challenging. And then you should also identify the individuals responsible for ensuring all transportation operations do comply with local labor laws. All right. Okay, and now I would like to show you our report example. So this is just an example with some screenshots of how our report from the Higg BRM verification can look like. So for the agenda, we have welcome and introductions. We reiterate the project scope and objectives. We discuss the findings, where we give first some general feedback to you. Then we have screenshots of all the scores, both the actual scores and the life cycle scores. And then we do make a list also of all the open questions you have. So section by section, we list the questions where you can still improve. And then, of course, we have a conversation about that together with you. We see if there is anything that we can improve after this verification and if there are any open issues. And that's basically the closing meeting that we do with you. And after that, we have an internal quality review, and then we would send the module back to you. You can review it. If there are any open issues, you can still send it back to us. And after that, once everything is complete and correct, you can finalize and post the BRM verification. The deadline, according to SAC, to post your verified module is end of year, December 31st. Sounds like a very comfortable deadline now, but please don't forget to do that, because in January you cannot post your module anymore. So the December 31st deadline is really a hard stop. All right, and now once you have done your verification, you can go and say, hello, wow, great that we succeeded with this. And you can go ahead and report externally. And there is a guideline available from SAC about how to communicate the Higg index in general. And there are several rules to follow. You need to make sure and also confirm that you are using the Higg terms of use. And then you can disclose 3 types of scores: your total scores, your section scores, and also your life cycle scores. And you can publish them together with your section scores on your company website and or in your CSR report. And you can also, as I mentioned, also optionally include your life cycle scores. And the detailed guidance about how to do that is included in the Higg FEM communication guideline. For third-party retailers who don't have your own brands, or you would like to report the brands that you are selling, and you would like to report their BRM results, you need to have consent from them. So it's exactly like for brands who want to publish a supplier's Higg FEM or FSLM score. The third-party retailers, you need to have the consent of your partner brands that you actually may publish their scores, and also then you can do that in different channels. And then, so why is it important to talk about your accomplishments and future targets? Okay, I think that's actually quite clear to everyone. You are probably, all of you are reporting, publishing sustainability reports, so you have information on your website about your sustainability programs. But of course, the Higg BRM is so comprehensive, and it gives you a lot of potential improvement opportunities. So there are always, for all brands and retailers who participate, there are always lots of improvement opportunities available based on the BRM results. But you can also continue building trusting relationships. Of course, these questions are comparable in that sense, and it says something, it gives an indication of where you are in your sustainability journey. And everyone knows that these are the same questions that all other brands are responding to. So it could attract sustainable investment. It can foster trust, of course, with customers and other stakeholders as well. And it can also contribute to value chain transparency. And how you can go about communication, you can establish a context of where you started in the previous year, just to explain how much you have improved, for example, compared to last year. Highlight any areas that you did not improve and explain why, and also outline why certain areas are not yet a priority and when you will prioritize them. In my view, I think it is always important to do this assessment, the risk, and I always speak about opportunity assessment as well, and then you need to prioritize. You probably cannot work on everything at the same time with the same intensity, so you will need to prioritize. And this is important for stakeholders to understand why you are choosing one area in front of another. And then how you will be addressing the areas that need improvement. Yeah. So the added value, there is an integrated approach to measure environmental and social labor performance. You have the opportunity to do a risk assessment, and you can identify sustainability hotspots. You have your scores, and you can also make sure that you get more and more accuracy in your own results and how you respond, of course, to the questions. It helps you to share with business partners, and it supports also sustainability education, provides guidance, and drives improvements over time. And I think that the Higg BRM is a really good tool also for internal communication, because there are so many different sections, and you can really use the Higg BRM to engage with your internal departments as well in order to implement your sustainability strategies more and more deep into your operations. And now I would like to present our BRM verifiers. You have already been listening to me for nearly 1 hour already. I'm Karin, and then we also have Ramya Kandior, who is a BRM verifier as well. And we have worked together for many years, Ramya and myself, and both of us are available and able to do BRM verifications for you. And then we also have a team to support us with coordination and administration, and they do a lot of hard work for us, Janne and Sophia. And for example, Sophia has helped with preparing this presentation that you have seen today. So thanks a lot for that, Sophia. Great work done. And then we are a licensed provider according to AA1000, so the accountability standard for assurance. And we also have, oh, sorry, I was a bit fast here. We have conducted more than 15 Higg BRM verifications last year. And you are, of course, welcome to reach out to us. To discuss more, we can set up a call to discuss, and we can also prepare a proposal for you. And then here is some information from last year, a few webinars we held last year, talking about the different sections within the BRM, and they are still valid. Not so many questions have changed from last year to this year. So please feel free to go and listen to those webinars. And then you can also book your BRM verification. You can click on one of those 2 links. We have online in our web shop. We actually have a web shop. You can go there and complete your booking form there. It's a very simple form. We just ask for a few different pieces of information, the standard ones, so that we can actually calculate a proposal to you. And then here is another form where you can also download the booking form. So both of them contain the same information. It's just that the layout looks a bit different. All right, and with that, I would like to move ahead and see if we have any questions here. Let me see. Yes, so you will receive this presentation and the recording within a few days, either towards the end of this week or at the very, very beginning of next week. And yes, so you will receive that. Any other question? There was a question here if the index calculation is done for the brand retailer company or the manufacturing company of the textile industry. Yes, so the brand and retail module is really focusing on the brands and retailers. So for a manufacturing company, you would rather use the Higg FEM, which is really factory oriented for environment, or the FSLM, or it's also called SLCP on the market, for the social side of the factory. If you are a larger manufacturer, perhaps with a large group and several manufacturing entities, it might make sense to use the Higg BRM as well if you wish, but it is not a requirement. Yeah. Yes, the Higg index is applicable in the manufacturing and exporting units, but then the Higg FEM or FSLM. Yes. Any other questions from the audience? Nothing? All right. Okay. Let me see. Here was something new. One more question here. Yes. So we have one question here about sharing sales data. And that is correct if it is confidential and you don't want to share it with your clients, for example. Don't upload it into the Higg BRM portal, but make it available to the verifier. So that is really important. With the Higg portal, you can upload any documents that you would like to upload, but be aware that whenever you share your BRM module, the people with whom you share the module will see everything, all uploads, all responses, all comments that you have. So if there is anything that is confidential, then keep it on the side, file it separately, and then make it available to the verifier. You should not be withholding any such information from the verifier, but as we know, the verifier is anyway working under confidentiality agreement. So I hope that responded to your question. Okay, I have one more question here. We are from India and export iron furniture in different countries. Which one is best of Higg's type, the FEM, BRM, or any other type? It depends if you see yourself either as a brand or as a manufacturer. So if you are actually a factory in a manufacturing setting, then the FEM or the FSLM would be the best. But if you are working more as a brand, then the BRM would be appropriate. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? BRM. Okay, yes, yes, in that case. All right, so let's continue then. And I would like to present, I would like to present our team to you. On this slide, you can see our entire team. It's actually growing week by week, so there are a few persons who have not yet been added to this slide here. But we are available. We have our headquarters in Germany, and you can contact us here. So here is my email address. You can contact me. You can also call me. And here we have a growing team as well in Germany. But then we also have offices in many other countries, like in Vietnam, in India, in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in Turkey, in Tunisia, in Portugal, and in a few more countries as well. So we have quite a large team already. Some are doing Higg FEM and FSLM work, and as you know, Ramya and myself, we are doing the BRM work, and then we also have other consulting projects, strategy projects, for example, or carbon footprinting that we work on. All right, so with that, if there are no more questions, let me see. I think there was one more question here. Yes. How do you see the future of audits of sustainability reports as they verify the same information, like audit for the BRM? How can this work be combined? Yes, it can totally be combined so that you do an assurance also of your report at the same time. You would probably need to do it with the same verifier. And then the information that the verifier is verifying in your report can then also be used for the verification for the BRM. Of course, there is always there is a lot of overlap, hopefully, but there may also be questions there where there is not an overlap. But I think that there are lots of synergy effects, and it's just a matter of making sure that you do the assurance in a combined project, so to say. And there is one more question here. I would like to know what the manufacturing facility need to undergo in BRM. Yes, the BRM is not for manufacturing facilities. So you don't need to do anything in the BRM. You may have been asked by your buyers to use the Higg FEM and the FSLM, and then you can do that. All right? Okay, so those were all the questions that we have received so far. And with that, I would like to say thank you so much, all of you who joined. And I wish you a really good rest of your day. And take care. And until we see each other with the next webinar. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.